if you were following the news yesterday, you may have seen that the Shrine of Remembrance CEO came out and said that they will no longer be lighting the facade of the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne in the colours of the pride flag because of threats and abuse that they have received directed towards them and their staff. Now, today is the day that it was meant to light up, and there was a planned protest there originally, which got scaled down and didn't really happen. But, there's been some very interesting video that's been shot by Rebel News reporter Avi Yemini of an interaction he had with the head of the security there at the shrine. And I'm just going to play that video for you guys first.
Do you know about the threats that they say that they got?
No
threats to start?
Oh, just emails and what have you. Yeah, there's no they're actually not threats. They're just hate mail.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so there's no.
Because it seems it's pretty bad because everybody's talking about these threats, and you're saying they weren't really threats. And
who's talking about threats? You do know that the lightning tonight has been cancelled.
Yeah, I know that. But he said he cancelled it because of those threats.
Okay.
That's all. No, that's all right. Yeah. So you're the commander here up here, so
I'm in charge of
these two.
Yeah, and my shrine guards and the shrine guards.
So you can go on and watch the whole video. I've linked it below. But essentially, what that police person that's responsible for security at the shrine is saying is that there was no threats. Now, the media, right, the online media, the news media on television and so on, repeated what the CEO of the shrine said about there being credible threats and made it look like, they're being threatened and abused and forced to do this. And, putting it out there that people who are, bigoted or homophobic and so on had forced their hand by being, threatening all sorts of actions against them. But of course, we've seen no evidence of any of that. We've seen them not file any, police reports about any of these threats. And so far, all we really have in terms of investigative journalism on this is the piece that Avi did just before, where he's shown what the police there, the head of security, who should know if there was any credible threats or whatever made against the building or staff there, say very casually, unprompted, that it's actually, no, there's no threats. Yes, there's been hate mail directed towards the shrine. Now, that in itself could just mean people who are displeased with the shrine, in terms of what they're doing. So it's not really the way that it's being reported and pushed out there in the media. Now, this has happened before. The same CEO of the shrine, last year when there was protesters there, he came out and said people urinated on the shrine, or he gave the impression that people had urinated. He never actually, I don't think he actually used the words people. He said there was, urine found, whatever. But the media ran with the story saying that protesters urinated on the shrine.
There's widespread disgust today directed at the protesters who used Melbourne's Shrine of Remembrance as a rally point yesterday. Police cleared them late yesterday, but the RSL says there was urine on the walls of the monument.
Immediately following the departure of the protesters, I inspected the monument. There was no visible damage in any place. Obviously, there was a lot of broken glass. There'd been urination on the walls of the memorial, which is absolutely disgusting.
Everyone was up in arms that people urinated on the shrine, but there's been no real evidence to point to that ever actually happening. All we've ever seen are images of police horses urinating, or maybe that people had pets there that could have maybe urinated while they were there. But the insinuation that protesters there were desecrating the shrine by urinating on it, there's been no evidence presented to that effect. So it seems like this CEO just puts out a sensational piece of information with no evidence to back it up.
But it was lights out after backlash and alleged abuse towards staff and organisers. As for the nature of the threats, it was a case of don't ask, don't tell from the Shrine of Remembrance CEO, Dean Lee.
I won't be talking any further on that. I'm not prepared to speak any further on the nature of the threats.
Right, the media just runs with it and uses that to make people look bad or to change the narrative of a certain story. People who are opposed to what's happening at the shrine right now, or angry about the lights being taken down or whatever, use that information to say, look, it's a hate crime and these people are, threatening the staff. How evil are they, and so on. But they don't actually share any evidence to that effect, right? From what I've seen online, just from looking into this issue and seeing what veterans online are saying, people who claim they're veterans online on Twitter, for instance, people are either on the center of this issue. They don't want any kind of political symbolism there. They don't want any type of protest there, or they don't want any type of flags which are not related to military service or the Australian flag, for instance, displayed there. And then there's people who are opposed to this particular light display. And then there's people who are veterans or in the armed forces who are commenting online and saying that they want the flag there and they want these members of their community who are LGBTQI+ represented in this manner with a flag as well. So there's a mix of views, but most people are either on the center or they're for or against, depending on how they're looking at this issue. So it's more than possible, and I think this is again speculation from my behalf, but it seems more likely that the Shrine of Remembrance, the CEO and the staff there, may have been contacted by a lot of veterans expressing their views on this issue, and they may have decided to just let this one go and not make a big deal of this, not make a big scene of it. It's possible that the protest that was planned there today may have had something to do with it, but that's more of the likely scenario, that there was a lot of disagreement within veterans or within the people who were in contact with the Shrine CEO, that they decided it's not worth doing this. Now, people can take whatever view they want of that kind of decision being made because of pressure being put on them, or because they had to listen to the community input. But it's not the way it's being portrayed as being, oh, we did it because of threats. Now, if there is threats, there might have been threats, but as far as we know, the security officer at the Shrine, who should know about any of these threats and stuff, right? I mean, you'd hope the people that are doing the security at the Shrine know about any of these threats. And he kind of commented, probably after seeing the material, when he commented it to Avi from Rebel News, he said, no, it's not threats, it's just like hate mail or whatever.
Do you know about the threats that they say that they got?
No
threats to staff?
Oh, just emails and what have you. Yeah, there's no they're actually not threats. They're just hate mail.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so there's no.
Because it seems
He didn't seem too fazed by it. So the hysteria that's been created around this seems totally manufactured. And until we actually see maybe a police report to the effect that there was this threat and they're chasing up on it, or until we see some of these threats in either recordings or in emails, I'm saying credible threats, serious threats, for them to actually say, no, we're not going to do this, I would say that they're bluffing. They're talking absolute crap, and they've had a lot of criticism that they've had to respond to, and they've decided not to deal with that criticism by just not displaying this thing, right? Because they were worried that people, perhaps veterans, might come out in protest, or veterans might come out and voice their opinions more openly, and that would not look good for what they're trying to do. Because essentially the actual exhibition itself that's happening within the Shrine, that's a good thing. People who are a part of these communities, who are LGBTQI, these plus communities, are being, there's an exhibition on their behalf, their service, past and current members, and that's being discussed, and that's a good thing. And I think a lot of people are missing the point that people weren't really upset about that happening. People were more upset about the symbolism being applied to the Shrine itself. Now, when I actually went today, and just to see what was going on at the Shrine, I spoke to one protester, Steve, which I'll play the interview of after this. And he was there, and I've seen him before at freedom protests as well. So, I spoke to him and I just asked him for why he is there. And you can make of you can make what you want of what he says. But I think this kind of reflects the views of people who are, what I've seen anyway, mostly against the flag being displayed. Again, my personal views are that, it's nice if building like this is kept apolitical, if it's respectful in the manner that it's used to have certain messages displayed on it. It's very convenient now for governments all around the world, on any building, for instance, since the advent of these LED lighting technologies, these cheap technologies to light things up. They'll just project stuff onto buildings. But perhaps there are some buildings that should be off limits. And we have been seeing people haven't been paying attention maybe to the shrine being lit up in other colors for the Queen, for instance, or for the Japanese Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister that was assassinated. They lit up the shrine for these things. I mean, do we want to make it a place where we have it as a kind of like a symbolic political symbol where we symbolize certain things on it? Or is it nicer or more respectful when it's just a blank slate, apolitical? It's there to represent the views of, you know, all the people that served, and of course the community and relatives of those people, and just the wider community. It's meant to represent everyone. You know, should we keep it more sacrosanct and sacred in that manner? And people have commented on this, you know, for a long time, and there was a lot of heated debate last year when protesters were there, right? People had all sorts of opinions about why it's not a place that should have any kind of political messaging or other flags and all this kind of stuff, right, to do with anti-vax or anti-mandates and things like this. So, you know, people have strong feelings in the community about this, and I think most people sit on the center. But, you know, I'm not a veteran, so I can't speak from that perspective. But if you are a veteran and you have some views on this issue, please do share them below. But here is my interview with Steve, the protester that was there, and you might get some insight into why people are concerned about this issue from his perspective. So I'm here at the Shrine of Remembrance. I've got here Steve Riley, and he's here with his 3 flags: the US flag, the British flag, and the Australian flag. Steve, why are you here today at the Shrine of Remembrance?
I'm here to be a voice for our brave fallen soldiers who fought and died for the freedoms that we enjoy. And I believe the pride flag flying on these grounds is completely unnecessary and is disrespectful to the memories of our brave soldiers.
Disrespectful in what way?
Well, it's a flag that represents sexuality, people's various sexualities, and sexuality is a private matter between individuals, and I don't think we should be discussing it openly at a memorial. You know, there's places for that conversation. There's a $25 million Pride Centre less than 10 minutes drive from these grounds that was built during the lockdowns when they were shutting down our businesses. They stopped us working and they used $25 million of our taxpayer money to erect a monument and a centre for the LGBT community. So if you need that message and you need that validation, that'd be a very good place to go. I don't think a tombstone for fallen soldiers is appropriate.
The reason the flag is there and what's happening at the shrine for, I think, 12 months, there's an exhibition for members of the LGBTQI plus community who have served in the armed forces. So they're also members of the armed forces community. They're a part of the military.
Yep.
So in a way, you know, I understand the flags there, and there are people who are upset about that symbol being there. But isn't it for the soldiers that also gallantly and heroically fought besides other soldiers?
That's what the Australian flag represents. The Australian flag represents all peoples of Australia. Gay, straight, black, white. Every culture on the planet is contained within Australia. We're a proud multicultural society here. It's one of our, if you ask anyone, it's one of the things we're most proud of, the multiculturalism that's here. So that every spectrum of Australian expression is contained within the Australian flag. The act of, under so-called inclusion, flying the pride flag excludes all members of the ADF who are not gay or bisexual or trans. The Australian flag represents all those people, so I find it completely unnecessary.
If this building was to allow this flag to fly, well, it already has, should they allow other forms of political expression here? Is it opening up?
Look, No, I don't believe so. Yeah, it's a monument to fallen soldiers. Whoa! It's a monument to fallen soldiers. That's all it is. You know, you should not. You wouldn't go to a cemetery and plaster paraphernalia, propaganda, advertisement of any sort on someone's tombstone. It's to be respected and honoured and left in peace. And I don't support. I found out recently that when Shinzo Abe died, was killed in Japan, they lit up the shrine red to remember him. On the Queen's Jubilee, they lit it up purple. Leave the lights alone. The lights should be there to illuminate the shrine, and that is it.
You know, the media presents this as people who are bigoted or homophobic, who are against these kind of things in our society, being upset about that. That's the reason that they don't want to see these symbols erected. But what you're saying is that it's not necessarily anything to do with anything like that. You more so want one flag to represent everyone at a place like this.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And look, that's what the media does. Unfortunately, the media is against the people. The media is supposed to speak to the people, for the people, and they don't. They like to put us under categories that we aren't, if it supports their narrative of fear and division, because that's what sells newspapers, fear and division. If it bleeds, it leads. If they can make someone scared, then that person is going to go out and consume more media to try and feel safe. And yeah, they couldn't be farther from the truth. Those people, the media who say that, where are they? Why aren't they here right now to get the voice of our perspective? You are here. Independent media speaks the truth.
And look, I was here as well when you know, yourself and others, members of the Victorian public, were here protesting at the shrine as well. Sometimes they came to the shrine, sometimes they were here inadvertently because the police pushed them in this direction.
Yep.
Do you think, you know, that argument that's made that this place should be apolitical, this should be a place that doesn't represent anyone's politics, whether it be politics against the government, anti-mandates, whatever it is, do you think that was wrong at that time when protesters were here as well?
Do I think it was wrong for the police to suppress them?
No, do you think it's wrong to protest here as well? Like,
no, not at all.
because, you know, that is in many ways is a political symbol.
Yeah.
And you're saying that those things don't belong here on the shrine.
Yeah.
Do you think it's okay when people are protesting, for instance, bringing different flags here?
I support the anti-restriction protests that were held at the shrine. This is a symbolic place of people who fought and died for freedom. And the act of fighting for freedom is apolitical. It's not political at all. Since the dawn of time, since we were monkeys who came down from the trees, we have been fighting for the freedom to be left alone in peace and to raise our families and protect our loved ones and just be left alone. And that's what the lockdown protests were. They weren't political at all. They were pragmatic and necessary expressions of the people fighting and asking. That's what they were doing. We weren't here violent. We weren't here destroying anything. We were here asking to be left alone, given the right to have our right to work and to live in freedom respected. And yeah, I support that completely.
But you know, it's less than a few people that are here today for this cause. Do you think the community itself is not really, you know, in support of views like yours, for instance, and they're okay with what's happening here today? What's going on?
Yeah, I wouldn't say disappointed. I wasn't expecting a lot of numbers here today. It was a last minute thing. I only found out about this on Thursday, that they were planning to do the light up of the shrine with the pride colours. No, I believe the people, majority of people are on my side of the argument. You only needed to see the social interaction that the news, that they were lighting the shrine up in the pride colours, that developed around the social media posts. It was a vast majority of the interactions were in support of why I'm here today, and I've had nothing but messages of support privately since I announced that I wanted to do this. And yeah, I think we'll see when you upload this, I think you'll see in the comments that majority of people who don't fall victim to media narratives are on our side of the argument, for sure.
Thanks for your time, Steve.
No worries. And I'll just say, can I say one more thing? The trainer for the Shrine Guards was here before, just having a chat with me. And I asked him, you know, do you support the pride flag coming up? And he said, well, I'm an LGBT liaison officer for the Shrine and for Victoria Police, and I do support it. And I asked him, what do the colours on that flag represent? And he could not tell me. So why are we flying a flag that we cannot explain on the gravestone of our fallen soldiers? Why are we doing it? What does it accomplish?